Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and don't start Holy Week without me. I'm still 2 miles out from the city. Today, Amy joins us to talk about her sermon and Jesus' entry into Jerusalem. But before we lay our garments and palm branches down, now that they've untied their equine of choice, let's see if it's a donkey or steed ridden by our favorite co-host, Marin and Barry. Good day, guys.
Good day.
I tripped up a little bit.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
It wasn't your best.
No.
I was like, do we want to start again
Nope.
from
No.
the clap?
Hey, Amy's here. Amy's back, everybody. Her triumphal entry today.
There she is.
Welcome back, Amy.
All the cheers.
Yeah.
What a triumphal entry that was.
It sure was. It sure was. Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has been a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I forgot even that I said just before we started,
What do you mean?
We're on this thing. Like people are
Yeah.
looking at us.
Video.
Yeah, I know.
Video.
It's a new way of doing this.
Did you
So
forget?
I totally forgot.
Oh.
Look at me. Look
No,
at
you look
me.
great.
look great.
You look
Look at me,
great.
everybody. I forgot. Okay,
You look
so
great.
here I am.
Yeah, great. Yeah, what's new then for the last year and a half? What have we missed?
Oh my word. Well, I just got back from sabbatical
I
like
know.
3 weeks ago.
I want to talk all about that.
That was amazing. What a gift. What a gift. I mean, people that I talked to were like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah. I'm not going to work for 12 weeks. Like
Yeah,
this
so-
is amazing."
What? So you were gone for 12 weeks.
14 really.
14
I
because
added
you took
some
a little
PTO.
extra
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
So, like, what are some of the main highlights? Like, what did you do?
Quiet prayer. Lots of sitting
of-
alone.
of sitting silently.
Yeah.
I went to Colorado, to the mountains right away with my best friend of 50 years and her husband and Jeff. And it was fun and crazy. And I probably laugh harder with her than anyone in my life. She knows me like a sister would know you. So it's real easy to be together. So that was a blast. It was so fun to be just home all during the holiday season with my family. Annie was home from school. So I got to we'd go to the movies in the middle of the afternoon, the two
Yeah.
of us. It was just so
Lovely.
great. My family really enjoyed like no rushing during Christmas and Christmas Eve. And like, I was like, oh wait, I don't have to like get Christmas Eve dinner ready
Yeah.
on like 3 days before. Like it was just calm. Everything
Was this
felt
the
calm.
first Christmas Eve in like 30 years that you have not had to do Christmas Eve?
in some capacity.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So 28 years. 27 probably.
Yeah.
So yeah. But even before that, I was a volunteer. Like since
Yeah.
the church started, I've been doing all sorts of
Yeah.
things. And then I took my 3 daughters to New York City for 4 days at the beginning of January. And I saw old friends from college and high school and theater days here in Indy that live in New York. We saw 2 Broadway shows. Just to be there.
Living the dream.
It was really fun. And Annie walked away and said my favorite part was meeting
My
your
mom.
friend.
Oh,
Well, that.
yeah.
Meeting your friends from like a past life that
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
know about you, like
Mhm.
to see you through their eyes and how much they love you and they miss you and they're funny and great. So that was wonderful. And then Jeff and I went with his sisters and their partners and significant others, spouses to St. John for 8 days at the end of January, beginning of February. And
Wow.
that was stunningly beautiful. His sister and brother-in-law had been there before, so they planned the whole trip. So we did everything that you should do and then some. And it was just beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just, and we all got along great. It was really fun. So
It's
that
a
was
nice,
amazing.
relaxing time.
Yes. And I saw a counselor for the first time ever in my life. I met with her 4 times and I also did read a book and I did pray and I
Yeah.
did spend a lot of time quiet, which was good for me. And I really felt like between lots of different things, the counselor, the quiet time, the Holy Spirit spoke to me in very specific ways. And that was really, really huge for me. So
Good.
that was all great. And then I almost did a show. I started rehearsals. The show didn't happen. There's lots of reasons for that. I was kind of disappointed, but it was all okay.
Yeah.
But I still got to go to rehearsals and not be in charge
Yeah.
and show up and meet new people and reconnect with old friends. And so I really felt like I did everything that
Everything
I
you
possibly
wanted to
could
do.
And yet you still feel rested because it sounds like
Yeah, that would wear
was a
me
lot
out.
of busy. That was a lot of travel.
I think because it was so long, like it was 14 weeks. So there was a lot of time in between still to do. And like the traveling, getting to the beach was tough. The rest of the time was completely relaxing. Colorado was great, except a little scary because I told you all I almost died on the mountain in Vail. But we're okay. We lived. I did fall 40 times probably.
Yeah.
And that is not an exaggeration. And then New York was real busy, but it's so life-giving for me that like being in that city is just everything to me, and seeing friends. So it felt like there was enough respite in between all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. And things that I would never probably do when I'm working all the time because
Sure.
I would be exhausted doing them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't tired doing anything. I was like, oh, I can get up at 4 and go to New York because when I get home, I don't have to get up. I don't have to get up and do anything.
Right.
So it was.
Somebody asked me kind of close to your return, like, do you think Amy is anxious to get back to work? And I said, don't you remember her during quarantine? Like she wasn't anxious to go anywhere.
Love COVID.
I
How long
was
do I have
like,
to wear this mask?
that makes me sound like I was being really like that's not self-giving love at all. That sounds terrible. But I do really like to be on my couch and lay around.
Yeah.
So
You have a really nice couch.
it's real
Yeah.
comfortable. So I was worried that that's what I would do. Like I was really worried
Just
that I
be
would,
kinda-
that I just
bump
like
on a
veg
wall.
out and really
Enveloped by
like
the
just
couch.
watch Netflix and I didn't. And so I was
Great.
really proud of myself for
Good.
not doing that. I
Right.
didn't write a book or anything,
It's
but
okay.
you know what?
Next time.
Someday maybe. I don't really think I have that much to offer. So a pamphlet. I might write a
Yeah, a
pamphlet
brochure.
someday. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
brochure.
2031 at your next
20
at your next sabbatical. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
write a book.
No, I'm actually 2030 because I was supposed to do 2023.
Oh, all right.
But
Very
I
nice.
spilled over. I
We'll
did a
see
little
about
bit of
that.
both.
We'll see about that.
Marin and I can't do the same year.
that
Like
would be
it's
rough.
it's already going to be crazy that
Yeah.
we will not be together. We will work together literally like
Yeah.
6 months this year.
yeah, that's right.
Because
Yeah,
we're-
Marin, you got one coming up.
I do.
Oh, Marin.
I do. I don't have a fraction of the things that you have planned that you did on yours. I will not be doing on mine, but yes,
You're going to love it though.
come
Friend-
quickly.
Friends of the pod who don't know, we do sabbaticals here every 7 years. So it started as something that was just for pastors, and over the last couple of years, we've actually rolled it out to all of our staff. It's something that is just a part of our attempt to try to push back on that trend of our lives just grinding us into dust, and especially ministry, which has a unique burden that just it shreds you up. And we wanted to make sure that we were at least once every 7 years giving our team an opportunity to breathe. So that's what that's all about,
Yeah.
in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
What else is new, guys? Marin, Barry, what's new?
I upgraded my seed starting situation.
God rules.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
What does
awesome.
that mean?
I for the last few years, I start my own seeds. I don't buy plants anymore.
Yeah.
I buy the seeds, and I can make a lot more that way. And I've been doing it all in this like setup that I had in my like pantry. And this year I finally upgraded and spent a little bit of money to get a really nice LED panel. It's brighter than the
Oh.
sun. It's insane.
Whoa.
And so I am actually able to use one panel that covers all the seeds that I'm starting, and it's all on a table, so I don't have to like stoop down and look. It's great.
Do you have like
So
a big fan in there?
I will once they're big enough to need to get a little bit strengthened.
Yes, that's
yes,
right.
Yes,
To simulate the wind.
that's right. You got to
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I don't know this.
Raise up your seedlings in the way they
You
should go.
have a greenhouse in your backyard.
Yeah, but it's full of lawn equipment and toys and yeah.
Get a big
slip
fan.
and slides. Yeah.
Slip and
Anyway, so
slide.
that's happening. I'm excited about that. That's about it. So
Yeah. All right.
That's it.
Upgraded seeds.
Anything like new this year?
oh yeah,
Or like
of
all,
course,
all
'cause
the
I have
old
a-
familiar
I
seeds?
have a problem that I can't stop trying new things. I'm doing potatoes this year for the first time.
Ooh.
I think we talked about this. I'm doing flour corn. So I'm going to grow this like purple Hopi corn
Uh-huh.
that is high protein, and it's designed for drying and grinding up into flour. So I'll make like my own tortillas.
Nice.
And then I'm doing
Your
black
hands on it?
beans. My
No
last
co-
name
no
is
comment.
Rodriguez, so I have to. Anyway, so that's fun. Stuff
Do you
like
grow
that.
spaghetti squash?
I have done that once before, and
Didn't
it got
work out
taken
so
over.
well.
It got taken over by some pumpkin plants that were
Oh.
more aggressive.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
sad.
Mm.
You like spaghetti squash?
I really like some spaghetti squash.
All right, one of
It's
these
really
years, I'll grow you some spaghetti
good.
squash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
That's right.
Did you
Every
get-
time you and I have ever been at the local together, you have ordered the spaghetti squash.
It's good.
You love that stuff.
I do. And it's so easy to make. And I
Mm.
never knew that forever. And then I figured it out. And now I love it.
There you go.
Wow.
I
It's
know.
funny how that
it's
works.
riveting, isn't it? Hey, did you finish your shelves? Weren't you
No,
building
I'm
stuff?
still working on them.
Oh, okay.
When it gets cold, I have a really hard time motivating myself to get out into the
Oh, right,
garage.
right.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it'll get warmer and I'll be out there every evening until it's done. So
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Marin, what's new with you?
Kids and I went to Chicago over the weekend. So
All
I
right.
say kids, adults.
Yeah, you're
Me and my
adults.
2 adults went to Chicago
Yeah.
over the weekend.
What'd you do?
We went and saw a concert, which is what we love
What
to
you
do.
do.
It's all
That's
I'm
what
going
you
to spend
do.
my sabbatical doing. Just
That will give you life, though.
concert to concert.
You totally should, because
I
you'll
will.
love it.
Yeah.
Are you going to go to Cleveland? You need to go to
I
Cleveland.
do need to go to Cleveland. I need to go to Cleveland by myself.
Yes.
Because nobody else in my family digs Cleveland
Yeah.
quite the way that I do.
You
I need to
totally
just take
should.
like a personal retreat to Cleveland.
you should.
Totally.
I should.
1,000%.
Yeah.
That's where you're going.
That's where I'm going.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. It's going to be summer, so it's going to be great
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So it was fun. It was good to get away.
All right. Yeah.
Was this music that you personally like, or
Yes.
Oh, you didn't go as a favor to the kids.
No. So this was music brought to us by my daughter,
Mhm.
but most of the music are I'm sorry if she's listening, and Jaden, don't tell her because I know that you watch, but she doesn't. Most of the music that she has brought our way is not really
Not your style.
It's not really for us, you know. We're not into it. There's one
It's like
artist
whispering, isn't it?
that she brought our way. Yes, well, Jaden loves whispering in his own way, but no, most of Desi's stuff is like she likes jazz and stuff, but like the crooner type jazz from
Oh,
like
yeah.
the early 1950s. Like,
Amy likes that.
Oh, wow.
Crooner? You like crooner?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is this original
like
crooner
everything.
or like revival crooner?
No, this is Chet Baker. This is like
'Kay, don't know who
original
that is.
crooner stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it feels, I told her on the way home from the concert, like this feels like her ultimate rebellion. For a mom who like listens to raging punk rock
Yeah.
and loud, hard metal music
Yeah.
and things like that, for her to just listen to the longest, slowest
yeah.
note possible.
That's how she's
Just
getting
like,
you.
how
And it's like old music
How
too.
did I
Blessed is your
produce
mother?
children who listen to crooner style jazz from the 1950s?
I feel you, Desi. I had a big band phase.
Even big band is more lively.
Oh, I thought you meant
What
you
is
were going to say
that?
she's into it.
No, it's
Just
just
like
at least
doesn't
with
matter.
big
It's
band, you know that
1940s World War II era music. That's why I listen
Did
to
you
it.
just say what's big band?
Yeah, what's big band?
it's
Oh,
like
come
snappy,
on.
you know?
I don't know
You
big
play
band.
an instrument. You should know the history of music.
It's like a big jazz band playing like
You had a
Glenn
big- and you
Miller.
had
Glenn Miller
You had a big band
Count
face?
Basie. Yeah.
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 It's way more
Yeah.
upbeat than the crooner lullabies that my
Let's
daughter
take
likes.
the A train. Come on, anybody. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
But
it's
anyway,
good.
this was an artist that she brought to us that
Uh-huh.
both Jaden and I were like, okay, this artist is pretty awesome. So we were
Okay.
very excited to see. The last time I took her to see this artist was in Detroit 2 years ago.
All
So
right.
it
Oh, so
was-
you've been there before?
saw
this-
her perform in
Yeah.
Detroit 2 years ago.
Oh, I remember that.
Mhm.
Was it just you
yes,
and her?
it was just me and her, and
Yeah.
she had to style me, right?
Yes, I recall. I do
Because
recall. Yep.
It's that big of a deal. So this time she styled Jaden.
Yeah, and didn't you meet
Oh.
someone
and me.
very nice? Didn't
Yeah.
you meet someone fun in line?
We've met a lot of fun people in
I
line.
thought in Detroit you met someone
That was a
in
big
particular.
fun line. That was so it was general admission, and that line wrapped around the building, wrapped
That's
around the
right.
block
Yeah.
2 times.
Yeah.
This was not general admission, so this was a little bit smoother of a show. But it's the first show that my kids and I have ever like super looked forward to. For months we've been looking forward to this show. And my friend who's a writer for the Chicago Sun-Times was at that show that night,
Oh,
and I
cool.
didn't know it. But he wanted us to proofread his article before it ran in the Sun-Times. So
Wow.
that was super cool.
Well,
we
obviously
got
it's
to see
Jesus.
it. Say it
Sorry,
again?
say that again.
Well, obviously, it's Jesus.
It just totally was.
Yeah.
So Jesus that my friend Jeff was just sitting 2 rows in front of me and I didn't see him.
Did you give him any feedback?
Of course.
Good.
Oh, Desi was like editing the mess out of it. She's like,
Nice.
you got the name of that song wrong.
I
It's
hope he-
actually called this.
I hope he
Okay,
gave her a
Desi.
credit. You should have been like,
Yeah.
My daughter now edits the
Ghost
Chicago
written by
Sun-Times. But it was a
Desi.
lot of fun. A lot of fun.
that's fun.
I need help.
Okay. We know.
We are going on spring break next week, right after Easter, and it's the first time flying
Ooh.
with 3 children.
3 children.
That's a lot.
First
I
time
don't even know
flying.
what that's like.
Me either.
I don't either, and
we
so
never flew with that many kids.
So
Can't help
from
you.
what I understand, it's
I'll
like
help you, Tyler.
we have to take 3 car seats
Ooh.
on an
Wait.
airplane,
Oof.
Did
Milo's-
you get 3
like
seats?
a booster and then 2.
Did
car
you get
seats.
seats for every kid?
Yeah, but like once we get there,
Wow.
We gotta
you
get in the
guys-
car.
Seat for
you
the
guys
baby
are-
girl?
You guys
no,
are
she
pricey.
doesn't get a
She's like a lap.
airplane seat. But when we get to
there,
there,
you need a car
Oh,
seat.
right,
we
right,
got a
right.
car,
Yeah,
and so they got to get.
right.
We have
Yeah.
to bring our
You
seats
just,
with us.
You just check them.
Oh,
You just check them.
so
It's a pain.
It's good that they're only like $70 to check.
yeah.
a single bag.
Yeah, it's
So-
only going to be $2,000 for you.
We're gonna
to
try to
check
smash
but-
everything in a couple bags and go, but we're gonna be gone for a week. So it's our first time, like as a family, like traveling
Wow.
that far
Good luck.
over the air.
Where are you going?
We're going to Florida,
Okay.
What part?
Longboat Key.
Nice.
Oh,
What?
that's where my grandma had a condo there. I'm very
Okay.
familiar with Longboat.
Yeah, Longboat Key.
It's a
We're-
lovely part. Lots of spring breakers down there.
Oh,
Condos
boy.
right on
Enjoy.
the beach.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know I mostly need help, but it sounds like you guys can't help me with
I'm
the
going
travel
to tell you
part.
this right now. This is not vacation. This is a trip.
Garbage.
Yeah, it is not vacation when you're traveling with the littles.
Yeah.
It just
Thanks a
isn't.
lot.
I'm sorry. You'll have a great time, and it's a difference in it's a different routine, which
Yeah.
is good. It's always good to do something
No,
different.
I'm not. I'm
but-
not expecting to like relax.
Yeah, that trip's going to be a rough.
On
That's
the-
gonna be rough.
On the bright side,
I don't mean to be mean.
Tyler, on the bright side, when you come back, you're going to
Yeah.
be really looking forward to coming home.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you'll be like, I just got to get.
As long
These
as we can
kids
get all
out
our
of my
stuff
hair.
there, I feel like if I can get all my stuff there without like it getting stuck somewhere or
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
I'll
Or
be
you do
good.
have do you have a direct flight?
Yeah.
Then you're fine.
Yeah.
It's all getting there.
All
You're
right.
good. Direct flight will help lose the most laid back kid ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she'll be a problem on
Yeah.
the plane.
Yeah.
The boys,
Yeah, the boys might
be
be it.
running up and
Yeah.
down the aisles.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's gonna be awesome.
yeah. So that's what's new with us.
Oh, that's gonna be
Which
fun.
means I don't know if you guys want to do a podcast without me next week, but
You leave the day after Easter.
mhm.
well,
So if-
we're not. We're the.
yeah. So
we're
no
not working
podcast
the day
next
after.
week.
No podcast next week. No.
You know what
offense.
else is nice? You have lots of help on that trip because aren't you going with other people?
Yeah.
So that
So maybe I will relax.
You will get a little relaxing because people like to hang out with kids that aren't their own.
Yeah. It's the first time I've flown to Florida and put like my golf clubs in the garage. Like I'm not bringing golf clubs because I can't because we have to bring car seats.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's new.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I hope you have fun.
All right. I don't remember what week we're in. What week are we in? Seven?
I think it's
Oh,
7.
there's no way to know.
Yeah.
Who can tell?
Week 7 of our current sermon series,
I
Witness.
think 7.
And Amy, you are here because you. What?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, you're here because you gave the sermon this past weekend
did.
about Jesus's triumphal entry and Palm Sunday. So can you kind of give us if you remember how this works, we're going to
Barely
go
no, I
through
don't.
what was the big idea
I'm
that you
very
wanted people.
unprepared. I don't remember anything about how to do this.
What was the big idea you wanted people to walk away with?
Well, I kind of
You're on video right now, by the way.
because I'm scratching my armpit.
Just a good
I
reminder.
also took my earrings off a bit ago because oh my gosh, they
Ouch.
hurt so
Yes.
bad with these things.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like the message was like lay out the whole story and
Yeah.
then get to what do we take away from it. So my takeaway was basically 3 questions. Do you believe that Jesus is who he says he is?
Mm-hmm.
Are you constantly bringing him into your world and telling people about what he means to you, what he's done in your life, like his followers did, taking him into Jerusalem? And if you are you entering the world on a donkey in humility and kindness and love and forgiveness as he did coming into Jerusalem that day?
Yeah.
So those were the big takeaways from the message.
Yeah. So you started the sermon with an analogy to acting
Yes.
and the deep study required to embody a character.
Yeah.
And what we can learn about other characters when we pay attention. So putting on your theater hat,
Yeah.
what
It's going
did
to be
you?
really hard.
Yeah,
for
what
Amy.
did you
gonna be
learn
tough.
about Jesus that maybe surprised you or you didn't realize before?
That's an interesting question.
Thanks.
Could you give the questions ahead of time? 'Cause that might be good. Can I think about that for a second? I feel like I learned more about the story in general.
Yes. So what?
and
Like what?
Well, the whole thing that I was blown away by the idea that the triumphal entry, that it was 2 miles before they ever got to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that it was his followers, his people ushering him into the city was news to me.
Yeah.
Like that was news to me.
Versus the idea of everybody from Jerusalem rushing
Like
out.
waiting
Right.
for him.
I thought it was like, oh, all these people in Jerusalem were like, yay, look at him. But they didn't want to accept him in that way really at all. I don't think they didn't believe that he could be what they were told he was supposed to be. So it made perfect sense once I understood that. But that was news to me. Like that whole idea that all of this took place before they even entered the gates of the city or whatever was totally new to me. And I think to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was
because
news to
I
me.
had several people come up to me and say, I had never, and it turned it on its head for me when it was his followers that were laying down the cloaks and walking him into the city. Like that is beautiful to me. Like I know that I'm not as studious as some. So it doesn't surprise me that I didn't know all these things, but the picture of them, it brought tears to my eyes. And that's where the application came from, because I'm like, are we as his followers doing what they did on that day and ushering him into the world? And are we doing it with the posture that he has instructed us to do it with?
Yeah.
And so that was just such a beautiful picture to me. So that was the piece I learned the most as I was getting ready for this.
Yeah, it is a really different way of looking at the story, because at least in the Bible school or in the Sunday school version that I heard growing up, the whole city came out. They all love him. They're all like, "We did it! Here's our king!" And then like a few days later, they're all like, "Wait a second,
Yeah, that's how I've always understood it.
And this way, it's a bit more somber of this concept of. It makes more sense of why the disciples are constantly saying like, if you go to Jerusalem, they will kill you there.
Right.
Because it wasn't a receptive, open-hearted, willing community. It was a group of people that were not all, I'm sure some were very open to it. But yeah, I mean, the first thing he does, he comes in to all this acclamation. According to Luke, he goes straight into the temple and starts flipping tables. So
that
like,
was
he's
the
not-
interesting. And he's not hiding from anything, and that he allowed them to say what they did, ushering in into the city. I didn't really get into that, but he had prior to that been like, no, don't talk about me in those ways. And then he just allowed them to say Hosanna and lay down their cloaks. And like that was really, and the idea that I know, the idea, I didn't want to wreck everybody's Palm Sunday by saying they didn't use palms, and that wasn't the case. They did, but the idea that they actually had to maybe work to get the palms, to get branches. It wasn't just readily available. That too was beautiful. Like they worked hard to honor him in the way that he deserved to be honored. And I'm like, are we doing that? Do I do that on a day? I don't even do that with like simple tasks. I'm not honoring him daily. And so,
I mean, the idea of having to go out of your way to like gather palm branches down at the Jordan River or something like that.
Right.
We're like, oh man, it's drizzling. I guess I'm not going to church today.
Exactly. That's what gosh, I'm pretty tired. I don't think I can get up and spend any time reading my Bible or praying, because I didn't get much sleep last night. And they're like working hard to honor him in an appropriate way. And it was just the whole thing was kind of mind blowing for me. And it turned the story for me personally, it turned it kind of on its head and made me, instead of looking at the person of Jesus in this story, it made me look at the disciples and how they were reacting in this moment. And would I do the same thing? Because I don't.
And you reminded us that they didn't know the ending.
Right.
We know the ending.
Yeah.
So all the enthusiasm, all of the excitement and of their actions of worshiping him in that way, announcing that he is king, saying Hosanna, laying down the palm branches, they had a different ending in mind, what they were picturing.
And we know. Like how much more should we be rolling out the red carpet and telling everybody what he means to us? But I hope that I was able to get the point across that nobody cares what we say about Jesus if we're not riding the donkey into the world.
That's right.
Like no one cares. If we're coming in on a steed, like we're so great and we're full of the arrogance and then we are a clanging cymbal. Then we are which is annoying, and we're just an annoyance, and we're getting in the way of what the Holy Spirit wants to do and the work that needs to be done if we are not humbly riding into our world on a donkey. And as I was looking through I was looking at commentary for all of the gospels. And one of the things that I just kept being reminded of is how angry, if he was angry at anyone, he was so angry at the religious leaders and their arrogance and their unkindness
Legalism.
toward. And I look at our world today and I'm like, that's where we are again.
Yeah.
I look at much of the world and I'm like, I'm so much more angry at Christians that say that they love Jesus than I am anybody in the world that doesn't claim to know Jesus.
Right.
I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
You don't know anything. You don't
Right.
know. You don't know.
There's
I
no
don't mean you don't know
expectation.
anything.
There's no expectation
No,
of that.
there's none. But I have high expectations if you
Yeah.
tell me that you love Jesus and then you act kind of jerky. Like that's not okay. It's not okay.
Right.
And so I was just looking at that again and thinking, wow, he was just ticked off at those people because and that's how I feel. Like sometimes I want to just say to the church, hey, we don't need to be talking about anybody else right now. We need to be focusing on how are we behaving in the world around us? Because I think we do a real bad job of mirroring what Jesus was and is.
Right.
So,
and we forget, I think, that Jesus did not come to start a new religion. Like he wasn't saying out with the Judaism, we're starting Christianity. It was all one thing. And so the idea of him weeping over Jerusalem is him weeping over his people who are rejecting him, that he still is intending to work through to bring about the redemption of the world. But like there's another alternate dimension where they did accept him, maybe not, and maybe it's impossible, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you could imagine the story going differently had the religious leaders seen in Jesus the truth of who God is, and had they seen in his miracles the actual power of God at work in their world. Like who knows what would have happened, but they didn't. And so he's weeping because it's not that he's starting from scratch. It's that yet again, the people of God reject their own God.
he's just trying to get him back to what was originally planned.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
And I actually had a really interesting conversation with my son about that because he decided that he was going to read the Bible from beginning to end.
Oh,
so
yesterday?
I don't.
After your sermon?
No, a couple weeks ago he decided this. So he was reading it. I came home one day and he was reading. And he was starting in Genesis.
Yeah. Then
So he was
gets bogged down in numbers, probably, right?
Yeah, well, if
Gets
he's
you
gotten
every
there, yeah,
time.
we'll
Yeah.
see. But he was very intrigued, and I mean, he's grown up at Grace, so he's heard things, but he doesn't go to church all the time. And that whole idea of Eden, he was like, so what? So did God leave him then? Like when they reject, because he was walking with them, and then it was over.
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, he intended to walk with us for like forever,
Right.
But they messed it up, but he didn't remove himself from the equation.
No.
He was still there, but it was more distant, but he was so intrigued by the whole. And I said, well, that's what we're trying to get back to.
Right.
That's what we're here for.
Right.
Is to get back to that. And he was so blown away and like intrigued by that whole idea.
Wait till he gets to the cloud by day. And
He's
the
going to be real. He's
pillar.
and then I can't help. Then I'm going to have to send him somewhere else.
Yeah,
I can get him through some of the easier points, but when he gets there, I'm going to have to send him somewhere else.
Yeah.
But
Didn't he declare that he's proudly riding a steed?
Now you've thrown him under the bus.
I threw him under the bus.
So I was talking and I'm going through the whole steed and donkey, and he's sitting with the family. I'm not sitting with him. I'm speaking. And so he's just sitting there, and I'm going, you need to be riding the donkey in the world. And he's like, not gonna lie, I think I prefer the steed. And I mean, Jeff said the whole row was just dying. And I also do have to say that I did say donkey in the thing, because I mean, how do you not hear the word donkey and think of Shrek? I mean, like I just did.
Yeah, you had to.
So afterwards, Jeff was like,
You're embarrassing me.
he was just like, that felt real fun.
Amy, are you aware that Gen Z has a inordinate obsession with Shrek? Like he's become like a demigod in the Gen Z.
Oh
good
my
job.
gosh. So now they're worshiping Shrek?
No, it's
Okay.
just that he's become a meme of a meme to the point where I don't understand Gen Z at all.
I think my
But
kids
what
are
I-
that, right?
But what I see are these very odd, like frequent references to Shrek in
Okay.
just about everything. So
was
maybe
it inappropriate that I did it?
No, I don't think
Okay,
so.
okay.
I don't think so. I'm just saying maybe you struck a chord with a younger generation that you didn't even know
Right.
that you struck.
Maybe they're all the more excited that Jesus made his triumphant entry on a donkey.
On a donkey?
Donkey.
Yeah, but Jeff didn't think it was funny at all. My
Yeah, well,
husband.
because he's not from Gen Z.
He was like, that fell flat. Don't do it again.
Don't ever do it again. You're
And
embarrassing me.
I was like, okay. He goes, and I think maybe inappropriate. I was like, what? He was
Wow.
like, you shouldn't have said donkey. I'm through. If Jeff listens, he's going to be so mad at me. Next message, I get to talk about being a good wife. So that's going to be awesome.
Speaking of falling flat.
Yeah, you're not kidding. You're not kidding. Like, I mean, he's gonna be like, wow, this is gonna be a
You're
rough
just going to look back the entire time you're preaching. He'll just have his arms crossed.
Yeah,
Just,
totally like, she's lying about that right
Fake
now.
news. Boo.
Fake news. Totally. Sorry, I got us off track.
You referenced it a couple times, and I think we've talked about this before, but I want to ask explicitly because it challenges our perceptions of what things like success and power mean. Can you talk about what the upside down kingdom means? What does that mean?
I think that's the opposite of everything that we think is important because it's humility and it's it's the fruits of the spirit: gentleness, kindness, self-control, patience, peace. It's everything opposite. I feel like Jesus took everything from the Old Testament and kind of just made it way harder. Like everything that we were like, the commandments were like, don't murder. But then he was like, that's not enough. Actually, you've got to not even think about it. And you need to love your neighbor, and you need to love your neighbor as yourself. And you need to turn the other cheek, and you need to be like all the things that go, it's not prideful. It's not malicious. It's not unkind. It's loving your enemies, which I think we're talking about in just a few months, which in that series, even you were saying, was it Dallas Willard that said, if you're loving your enemies, then you really understand that you,
test.
yes,
the litmus test of true Christ-likeness is loving
so
your
it's
enemies.
all of those things that just feel counter to what the world tells us that we're supposed to be about. And I think that just gets worse and worse as we go along. I think it feels, or at least it feels like it, like the world is screaming out all the opposite things of what we're supposed to be about. But the upside down kingdom to me is the hardest road to travel because it's the hardest thing in the world to do, but it was everything that Jesus was.
Yeah.
You take a look at the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, and that's describing the upside down kingdom. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Well, you wouldn't have said, blessed are those who mourn. You would think like, oh, bummer.
Cursed are those.
That's
Bummer to
terrible.
those who mourn.
Yeah.
Right.
They are not blessed. Blessed are the ones who are like rejoicing, right? But our King says, no, blessed are those who mourn, or blessed are the meek, or blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness. You read that, and it takes ideas that were held at the time, like blessed are the strong, or blessed are the powerful, and turns it on its head, turns it upside down.
Right. And there's this, of course, I love the Triumphal Entry has so many layers to it. And you referenced the one of the layers related to that Zechariah passage that talks about here comes the king on a donkey. But there's the upside down nature of like what the Messiah is even here to do. Again, the Israelites always thought of the Messiah as a military figure who would, Milton was talking about this last week, that would come and overthrow the Romans. And while you were preaching, sorry, I got distracted because I was reading the rest of the Zechariah passage, Amy. And I found it so fascinating because I'm sure this would have been in people's minds. When they saw the donkey, they would have been thinking Zechariah 9. And when you keep going in that passage, you get down to verse 15, and this king shows up, makes things right in Jerusalem, and then basically goes to war against the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And it says, the Lord of hosts will protect them. They shall devour and tread down the slingers. They shall drink their blood like wine and be full like a bowl drenched like the corners of the altar. So it's like, whoa, there's a lot of bloodshed. And so who knows exactly what the disciples were thinking, whether they were thinking, okay, here comes the blood.
Right.
Yeah.
But then what happens? He gets into Jerusalem, and here comes the blood, but it's not the blood of the Roman Empire. It's his. Like, so even in that, he is stepping into Zechariah 9, but he's defeating the powers of this world through his own self-sacrifice. It's upside down. So anyway,
it's made me think about his return, because I know, like, I'm looking at it right now in Revelation 19. He's coming back on a steed.
Yeah.
He's coming back on a white horse.
And the hem of his robe is
dipped in blood
Dipped
or
in blood.
whatever.
Yeah.
His eyes were like flames of fire. On his head were many crowns. It says that there's like a sword. From his mouth came a sharp sword to strike down the nations, and he'll rule them with an iron rod. I wonder if I'm expecting the wrong thing of his return. If Zechariah describes him in a certain way that led people to expect him to arrive in a certain way with the triumphal entry, because they read stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I wonder if I wonder if I have the wrong expectation of, or how will I be surprised at his return, or the way that he returns? Is it going to look exactly like I think it's going to look based on what I see described in Revelation, or am I also kind of missing something? I don't know.
Well, I think the authors of Scripture totally understood this odd dichotomy. Like even the author of Revelation, he's the warrior with the sword coming out of his mouth, and he's also the lamb that was slain. Those are the two operating metaphors of who Christ is in Revelation, and you can't have one without the other. And so, yes, he's coming to make things right and just, and yes, he's giving his own life as a means of doing it. I've heard some commentators talk about the hems of his robe are dipped in blood. It's his blood. And it's just like, what? It's so, anyway, I just find it so fascinating. I'm with you.
And I think it's interesting because when you read the Zechariah passage the parts that you were just quoting, like knowing what we know, we could go back and read that with a completely different tone and a different lens. And they were reading it through brand new eyes and reading it in a way that they were putting their own context on it. So that's just like you're saying, we're doing that too. Like with Revelation, we're putting our own context that we don't know. So it's just interesting because if you read those same verses in a different tone with a different inflection, it would maybe sound more like what is actually going to transpire than it does. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Like,
say it again. I think so.
Like if you read those same verses with a different inflection and different tone to it, you might understand it as it comes to be, as opposed to what context they were putting on it.
Kind of the way he just described it, like the streets being filled with blood or whatever, but it was his blood.
Right. But they're thinking, because they don't know anything else, they're thinking it's anyway, it's just interesting.
Blood soaking the altar, and he's the sacrifice.
But it's his blood soaking the altar.
So do you think his followers knew what was going on? Like were they going into Jerusalem expecting to go to war? Like what do we think that they, like when they were putting down the palm leaves, were they like, oh, we get it, the donkey, this is a humble king? Or were they like, we see the donkey, but even still, like, we're about to go to war?
I mean, based on the gospel records, we know that Jesus told them over and over again, I'm going to go to Jerusalem to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And he kept saying it. And I think they understood it. I mean, at the raising of Lazarus, isn't it Thomas? I won't say doubting Thomas because Milton called us to avoid that. But Thomas says, well, let's go and die with him. Like they understood there was some risk and death involved. But then Jesus goes and raises Lazarus from the dead and starts marching into Jerusalem on a donkey, which fulfills this prophecy that everybody knew about. And like, you have to wonder that were they thinking like, maybe death is just a metaphor. Maybe, I don't know. What were they thinking? But they're like, oh, this is actually, this could be it. This could be.
Can we change it? Like, is there a way? Can it be changed?
Maybe this is a test. Does it have to happen? Maybe he wants us to go.
Like, I think that sometimes with like even people that are really sick, like, if I pray enough, can I? I don't know. Like, can it be changed?
He marches into Jerusalem, and the first thing he starts doing is turning over tables.
According to some of the accounts. In John, he turns over tables at the beginning of the story.
Because that would feel pretty cool if you're his follower, right? Like,
you might think,
we're doing it. Let's go.
Blood in the streets.
Soak the altar with
blood. So it's so fascinating. And I wish we had more. I wish that the apostles had the same interest in historicity that we do in the modern world, that they would have written down, and this is what happened next, and then this is what happened, and this person said this, and then this person said this, and we confirmed that fact. But they just didn't. This was oral storytelling passed on from community to community, and then they wrote these things decades and decades after they happened. So we just don't get the details that we wish.
But if they were sitting there watching him fashion a whip, And they're like,
you
it's
love that
on.
line, Maren. I have heard you mention Jesus fashioning a whip so many times. It's just out there. Whoa! What if he fashioned the whip out of the palm fronds?
Oh,
That would be really cool. I don't know what a palm fronds is.
Weaving the
but
palm fronds
sounds
together
awesome.
so he can start driving out the money changers.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
so Jesus, his entry fulfills the prophecy of Zechariah 9. Why was it important that he deliberately chose actions that would align with the prophecy? Why was that important?
Barry, I'm going to let you take that one.
What? No, you could take it. You preached about it.
No, I thought that was a really interesting point, that he didn't need a donkey
Yeah,
to go
he didn't need it, but he
2
still chose
miles.
it. Why was it was it just to basically be like, see, this is what you guys have all been expecting and now here it is? Or was there something more to it than why did it matter?
He is the fulfillment of all of those prophecies.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it had to be that way for him to fulfill the prophecy. I am curious about what people thought of this man clearly not walking on foot into Jerusalem the way
right.
that they were supposed to,
Right.
which is another thing I learned from you this weekend.
Well, he was making a statement about, he had to do it too to make the statement of, this is who I am.
Yeah.
The prophecy said this, I should be walking in.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be going in this way, but the prophecy I am who I say I am. I mean, that would be my feeling about it is I am who I say I am. And I mean, it's even like going to the cross when he says, I wish this didn't have to happen. He does. It's not like it's the greatest thing in the world that he has to go down this road and do what he has to do.
Right.
But he knows he has to do it.
Right.
There's no way out of it. It is what he has to do.
And it is an illustration, as we've already mentioned, of the upside down kingdom. Had he rode in on a horse, that would have been a totally different picture. But for our King of Kings to be riding in on a humble donkey,
right.
Again, he is who he says he is.
Right.
Yeah. There's layers to this because I'm sure that by the time of Jesus, there would have been some very common understandings of what to look for. When the Messiah comes, this is what they're going to look like. This is what they'll do. This is the kind of person they'll be. They're going to ride into town on a donkey. It's probably part of the list of expectations that people had in the Messiah. So I think by Jesus riding in on a donkey, he's being very explicit, more explicit than he's been up to this point, and saying, I am the guy.
Yeah.
I'm the Messiah. Now, what I wonder, I'm very intrigued about, we know there were a ton of other false messiahs, guys that would come along and say, I'm the guy, and then they just get crushed by Rome
donkeys?
and they didn't resurrect.
Right.
I wonder, did they all ride donkeys into town? Is this just what wannabe messiahs do? I don't know. And so then the real Messiah shows up, does the thing, and then he goes and gets crucified by Rome, just like the rest of them. And then there's one thing that's different this time around, and it's the resurrection from the dead. I don't know. So there's layers, and I wish we knew more, but it's so intriguing to chew on it.
Something that was interesting to me was that the disciples presumably knew what these prophecies were, right? But it says that they didn't fully grasp what was going on in the moment until after, a couple days later, right?
I need to look. What does it say specifically? Anybody have it in front of them?
I have to put my glasses on.
But I was thinking, if that's true, if they knew, they saw what was going on, they saw the donkey thing, they're aware of the prophecies, but it didn't hit them what was going on until after the fact, or after he rose from the dead. It reminds me of all the times that I feel lost or confused until I look back with patience and trust at a later time and recognize God's hand. So I wonder if that's what was happening here. They're kind of caught up in the moment with all this activity going on, and then they had to look back and be like, oh yeah.
It was John, in John 12, it says his disciples didn't understand at the time that this was the fulfillment of the prophecy, but after Jesus entered into his glory, they remembered what had happened and realized that these things had been written about him.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's it's all the times in my life where it's I'm in the moment. I'm not necessarily being oh yeah, this is what God's doing,
right,
until after the moment's passed, and I have to look back with like trust and patience that like God was moving in that moment. I wonder if that's what was happening, because
Sure.
it seems like Barry, how you talk about it, it's like everybody knew that this was this
possibly.
is the guy's riding a donkey. This must be it. Like this must
Sure.
be it. But if it doesn't indicate that they felt that way, it was
Right.
just kind of like caught up in the moment.
That's where like you start thinking about what were they feeling in that moment after they'd spent all that time with him and he called them out and like said, "You come with me." Like
Mm.
what does that feel like to have somebody walk up to you and say, "You throw it all away. You're coming with me. You're following me. Now you're going to go on ahead of me." Then you see all these amazing things that he does. And he's this beautiful person that you can't even fathom how he can be the way he is. And he's teaching you things. But you have this prophecy thing in the back of your head and you're like,
Sure.
is this what's going to happen? Is it not what's going to happen? And then he said, like, I can't even imagine what they were feeling at that moment, thinking that I don't know, like, do you start to lose track of like what could really happen? I don't know. It's
Sure.
just, I don't know what it would be like to be in that moment and not know exactly what's going to transpire over the next
Yeah.
few days and think, well, maybe we could change the course of this if maybe we do things this way, and the thought of losing someone that you cared that much about, like, would you be thinking in it? There's no way that it's his time to leave. There's so much more for him to do, and we
Right.
can't do it without him. And like, how on earth are we going to go on without him? Like, I would
Yeah.
think there's so much there.
Yeah. Well, I think about it this way, Tyler. On one hand, we know that they had very standard expectations of the Messiah and Jesus being the Messiah, because you've got questions like, can my son sit at your right hand and your left hand
Yeah.
when you come into your kingdom? All these things about ideas of like, okay, well, the life's going to be amazing when he's the king on the throne. So they have definitely had those sort of things in their mind. But we also know, like the Road to Emmaus story, which we'll cover the weekend after Easter, where the risen Jesus encounters two disciples who cannot make sense of what just happened.
Yeah.
And Jesus explains to them from the scriptures all the things concerning himself. And so it was all there, but they needed some supernatural explanation to be able to get there. So we see it in both ways. So I think for John to say that they didn't understand what was going on until afterwards, I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
They had a perspective on what this was all supposed to look like. It all got shattered at the crucifixion, and they needed some serious help to be able to make sense of it afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, what John's getting at in that
Yeah.
passage. But
Yeah, that's my favorite part, is like trying to figure out how on earth
yeah,
would you be like, and you almost can't go there because we know so much. Like we're not living that in real
Right.
time. So yeah, I can't fathom what they were thinking at that moment.
yeah.
To end, you asked 3 questions. You kind of touched on that earlier. Do you believe Jesus? Are you ready to share that with the broken world? And are you riding a steed or a donkey? My question back was, how do I know if I'm riding a donkey?
Mhm.
How do I know? Do I need somebody to tell me that, or should I know that?
Oh, I know. I mean,
You know if I am?
Yeah, well, I can tell you all about you. Yeah, you're not. You're riding a steed every day. No, I'm just kidding. I know every day when I'm making a choice to be I mean, I think we know. I think we know when we're outside of what he's called us to live. Like, I do. I mean, I think but that's also our job
Yeah.
to, again, they sat in his presence day after day after day. And the only way I think that we'd have no power to live humbly, to live kindly, to live generously outside of the Holy Spirit's work in us. So if we're not doing the work to be encountering the living God every single day, then I don't know that we're capable of living. I'm not capable of living like that. And even when I'm working real hard to spend some time in quiet and to get myself in a place that's even physiologically a good spot to be in, that I'm living in a really centered space, I still am in my car angry at the driver next to me because I think he's trying to make me mad. But I know that's not how I'm supposed to be living. And so does that make
Yeah.
sense at all? I think that the whole idea of being in his presence and allowing yourself that space. After my sabbatical, I'm even more convinced of it because I had the time to do it, and I took advantage of that time, and I liked myself a lot better, and I was a better version of me the last 14 weeks than I had been for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because I was taking the time and making the space. And I came back and even said that to my staff. If you are not finding any time to take that space, then we're no good to the people that we're serving then, because we're not in a space that's centered and right to be serving from.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
I think they don't get it. Even people who spend time in his presence. And I say that because I'm looking at John 18:10, when Simon Peter takes the sword out and he strikes the high priest's servant and cuts his ear off. And Jesus says, "What are you doing?
Mhm.
That's not the way. Put your sword back into its sheath."
New King James.
He didn't know in that moment that he was acting arrogantly, or again, he's thinking it's go time, it's war time, it's time to respond with violence. Even though he'd spent all that time with Jesus, even though he'd witnessed him peacefully make his grand entrance on a donkey, he still didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a really good question. I think you're right. Spending time in his presence and reading his word should do enough, or do a lot, I should say, to correct us when we are, mistakenly coming at this thing from a steed and not from a donkey. But I think we also need each other.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with another person. I don't know this person all too well, but we were having a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and I could hear their own sense of rightness in what they were saying. But I kind of stopped the flow of conversation by just asking that person, okay, to what end? You just want to be right for the sake of being right, or you just want the world to know you're right, or what's the end game here? Are you wanting to reach another person for the sake of the kingdom, or are you just wanting to let them know how wrong they are? We needed to have a conversation, the two of us, Christ followers, in a way that was humble and thoughtful, and hopefully iron sharpening iron, but I think we need each other in those moments, because you're right. We don't always recognize when we're, we accidentally hopped on the horse when we should have been on the donkey. We don't always see it.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of goes back to even the opening illustration of the whole sermon was about, how are people reacting to you?
To you.
That tells me a lot about myself. By the reaction I'm getting from others, and the way that they're approaching me, and the way they think about me and feel about me. And yeah, I do. You're absolutely right. We have to, in a loving way, which that's always the balance of truth and grace and love and all that stuff. But yeah, we do have to, because we love each other, call each other out in those moments when we're not in the space that we need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's good to think about what king are we aspiring to be, or who are we looking up to? This is a rabbit trail, I admit it, but I'm going to go there. I'm learning a lot about ancient Persia right now. It's kind of in conjunction with my learning of ancient Greece.
Yeah. When did
It's
this
all
start?
connected. It's all
Okay.
connected. So anyway, there is this inscription in southwestern Iran that was made on the orders of King Darius of Persia, and it's called the Bistun inscription, and it is this massive thing carved up on the mountainside, like literally 30 feet up off the ground, up on a mountainside, and it is just this gigantic piece of propaganda about, like, I am Darius the Great, Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord, has blessed me with power over all that. And it's like a picture of him twice the size of everyone else on the thing, and he's like stepping on one of his rivals, and all the other kings that he's defeated are standing there with like their necks all bound together, and he's just like,
Is that right?
What?
Fact check it.
Is
Yeah,
that what's
let
on
me
the
get
best
on
tune
that real quick.
inscription? And the whole thing is just propaganda about how great he is and how merciful he is and how incredible he put down all these
Yeah.
revolts, and it goes on and on and on. But in real life, we know he was just a usurper to the throne who was kind of just a jerk, and he just killed people all the time. He was kind of a terrible person. So that's his propaganda. And most of human culture, we look up to kings like that. We want to be powerful. We want to be associated with those that are successful, that can trample down their enemies. And I think what's the Jesus version of that? And it's Philippians 2. It's even though he was in the very nature God, he did not consider equality with God something to cling to, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. So you look at that, that's Jesus's propaganda. Like I'm using that word loosely, but you know what I mean? Like that's what Paul is saying. These are the identifiers of our king. And so I think when it comes to our own, am I riding a donkey or a steed? I think it's important to pay attention to, like, where is my heart drawn? Do I desire to be powerful? Do I desire to be successful? Is that what's driving my decisions? Wealth and success and all that stuff? Or do I desire in my core to be like this one who gave everything up? The king, the rightful king who willingly died for his subjects. Like that is the absolute inversion of what we normally expect. And that to me is the sort of self evaluation that we need to be doing. And I think you did a great job of putting it very simply, steed or donkey, but it's the same question. Where is my heart aligned? It's not that we're ever there. We're always going to be working to become like Christ, but are we moving in that direction? Is that where our eyes are focused? That's the question. So I think it's a great way of thinking about it. Like, it was a good looking steed. All right.
It was a really pretty,
good picture of a steed.
Pretty horse.
Yeah.
Pretty horse.
And that donkey was real homely looking.
Yeah, that's sad donkey.
He was so sweet.
Did you know donkeys like to cuddle? They like hugs and
I mean, he
Kind of
was
gangly.
Well, you should have seen him up close.
Kinda
'cause
mangy.
I can't picture an adult sitting on that.
No one sat on it. He was wild. When we left, he was walking back up the hill. He was just lonely. I think he had tumors all over him too. He was really
and you did nothing.
I didn't show that part of it because I thought that would be kind of hard. I could have shown you a whole video of Jeff feeding him, but he was in his bathing suit.
Yeah, that
I
would have
didn't
been
want everybody
inappropriate.
I didn't want to make it stir up a tizzy.
All right, Barry, where do we go next?
It's Easter, guys.
Hey.
We have Good Friday first, obviously. Tim's going to be speaking. What? It's important, Amy. It's
I know.
good.
No, it's good. I love our Good Friday services are beautiful.
And we've got a choir. I won't spoil anything. It's going to be a beautiful service. That's Friday night, and then Easter, of course, this weekend. So we are going to be talking about the disciple named Mary of Magdala, Mary from Magdala.
Oh, all right.
Mary Magdalene, and we'll be looking at her story, the absolute shock and horror that she must have experienced at the death of Christ, and the fact that all four gospel writers put her at the tomb at the discovery that it's empty. So we'll talk about her experience and something very special that Jesus commissions her to do first above anyone else. So
Cool.
It's going to be great.
All right.
Hey.
Too bad we're not doing a podcast next week to talk about it.
So sorry.
And then 2 weeks after that, or 2 weeks from now, is Eclipse.
Big deal.
Yeah.
So
Got your glasses?
I got my glasses.
I've
got
got some.
glasses.
Oh, everybody, but I was going to offer some because I've got extras.
You got yours.
Ours look like they came out of a cereal box.
So do
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah.
So
They're
ours.
like cardboard.
You just got to check and make sure they're actual, like they have the
certification.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you
Little
look at
PSA
that, if
there.
you look at it, you're gonna
You're toast.
Yeah, you're gonna be ground to
My
dust.
family and I keep saying we'll either know that they work or we'll all go blind at the same
Yeah,
time.
totally.
And then we'll know.
And know
if
that
they
you
worked
know
or
that they didn't.
That's
Yeah.
right.
All right. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Amy, thanks for the message. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for allowing me back on.
Yeah.
It's been
Maybe
great.
next time we'll remember there's video.
Yeah, I'll put on some makeup next time and not be scratching my arm.
There you go. That's key.
Yep. Sure.
All right. Look forward to it. Marin, will you please send us out?
I will do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
And we'll see you on the other side of Sunday.